it got so bad. I remember, being like 13, 14 years old. And I used to daydream about my funeral, homie. I used to sit there as a kid and I used to daydream and I used to think like, I wonder if my mother will cry for me. I wonder if my mom will stop doing drugs if I die. I wonder if that'll stop her.
This is the True Hustle Podcast with your host, JR.
This is the True Hustle Podcast with your host, JR.
All right.
Damn! Jose Arellano, VP of Homeboy Industries. That's a big title, brother. But we all know you do great things in the community, but we want to know a little bit about you, about how you grew up, where you come from, the struggles that you had to go through.
Yeah.
That's what we want to know. So, like, what city you come from?
So I was born in a little city named Duarte, California.
Okay.
I was born in a hospital. The name of the hospital, Santa Teresita. They don't have children born there anymore. But yeah, I was born in that city. My family's from there. My grandparents, my mother.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you guys so I talk a lot about me being first generation. So my parents are immigrants. They came from Mexico, and I'm the firstborn here. Are you firstborn, or are you second or third generation?
So what's interesting is all my family, we're all from here. So my ancestors are from the Los Angeles basin. I'm a Gabrielino Tongva.
Okay.
So we're indigenous to this region, this part of the earth.
Okay.
Yeah. So years before the missions were here, my people were here, and we actually were converted to Christianity through the mission. So we're Gabrielino missionary Indians.
Okay.
But there's just a lot to unpack, even with that, all the history there. But yeah, my family's from here.
And how was it growing up in Duarte?
It was good. I mean, look, when you're a kid and you're growing up, you really don't understand until you do, like what how you're like poverty and pain and everything that comes along with it. But for me, I grew up. So I grew up and I was being raised by my grandparents. So I called my grandfather dad, my grandmother mom, and my mother, I thought she was my sister until I was about like 9 or 10. And then when I found out she was my mom, it was cool because I loved her, and I looked up to her. And my mother was a young gang member, just funny, witty. She knew all the right people. She played all the right games. She was amazing, homie. She was amazing. And she had her own struggles and challenges, some of my earliest memories, like, we grew up in a gang culture. Mm-hmm. So growing up, at a young, one of my earliest memories of my mother and I were, sitting at her back porch, and I was on her lap, and she's G'd up. My mother was a gangster, and I knew because of how I was raised that everyone around me, my family, my cousins, my uncles, they were all gangsters, and so I'm with her, and we're playing, and I'm on her lap, and some dudes walk by our gate in white t-shirts. And she stops and she observes them, and she says to me, "Mijo, go to the gate and ask them fools where they're from."
How old were you?
I was probably, 4 or 5. It was young. I was a kid. One of my earliest memories, I was a kid. And so I run to the gate and I said, "Hey." And they turn around and I said, "Where you fools from?" And they were living in our neighborhood. So they were from Pomona. And they were like, "Well, we're from Pomona." And I remember my mother got up and she stood up with such like certainty, and sureness. And she screamed out her vadio. And so they were tripping out, like this little kid, coming up to us, asking us where we're from. And then this woman, this female, letting us know where we're at. What's interesting about that is they became friends. She let them know where they were at. She, like I said, my mother,
even though they were from a different
city, they ended up doing fraud together and shit. And eventually my mother was arrested. A lot of the things, like, I knew growing up that my family were gang members. But it also wasn't like, at an early age, it wasn't wrong until it was wrong, until I started to understand life and I started to understand like pain, I would say. Like them being gang members wasn't the problem. But the pain, all the violence and the alcoholism and drug abuse that started to happen in my home became the problem. And then just, when you're a kid, a young brown kid growing up in poverty, just in general, we were poor, but when my grandfather was alive, he took care of us. He was a hardworking man. He worked for the trash company, and he always made sure there was food on the table. He made sure we were taken care of. He was the man of the house. My uncles were all his sons, but they were all gang members. My oldest uncle was a gang member, but he was also very responsible. The youngest boy was a gang member that got addicted to drugs eventually and battled with that shit. And he struggled. He was violent. He disrespected the pad. But stuff wasn't as bad. Like everything, like life, or anything that we do, it either gets progressively better or progressively worse. In our case, it got progressively worse. So like I said, my grandfather was raising us. Another thing too, looking back and then realizing trauma and how we respond to trauma, like he ran his house with an iron fist. So, brute force, disciplined his kids physically. And he's passed away. So, this is just to give you context of what was happening. Like he would sock his sons like right in the face. You know what I mean? So it was that type of environment. When you're young growing up and not understanding what you're feeling, it's like a little confusing. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's like you're growing up. Just to keep it 100, I was a kid. Like I had a big heart. Always had a big heart as a kid. Wanted to make people smile. I was a people pleaser. I always wanted to make those around me happy. So I was like, as a kid, I was one of those kids that would like, I would go and get everything for everybody. So my house was the hangout spot. My house was the party spot every weekend, sometimes during the weekdays.
So all the hood homies would
all the hood homies. But what was interesting, it wasn't like hood home. It was like we were all family. Mm. Like we grew up in there. Like these are my cousins. These are my uncles. My grandfather, is allowing it. You know what I'm saying? Like these are all our relatives. They just all happen to be gang members. And my grandfather, they grew up, they called the first neighborhood, it was called Rocktown. So they weren't a gang like us, like jumping each other in, but they represented where they were from. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But the violence, and I would say like early on, it was alcohol before it was drugs. But the violence and the alcohol and the partying, and then you're drinking and, people are hanging out and when you're drunk, you get in fights and all that shit's happening at the house. All that shit's happening at my house, and I'm growing up witnessing this stuff. Like I seen my first murder at the age of 5 probably. You know what I mean? In my yard. You know what I'm saying?
In the front yard.
In my yard. Or front yard, backyard, whatever, but in my yard. And so going back to, I was a kid that would go light the cigarette on the stove. You know what I mean? I was a kid that would go, hey, give me a beer. Go get me a beer from the fridge. I go get it, and I would open it up. Like I said, I wanted to please everybody. I wanted everybody around me to be happy, joyous, and free. So, I would make sure boom cigarette was lit, bring it back to that person, whether it was my tias or uncle, whoever it was. They'd be listening to music. I'd dance on the table for them. They'd be listening to like Jailhouse Rock, Elvis Presley. I would dance on the table for like nickels and dimes and quarters and shit. That was me.
Wow.
But from an early age, I was also very observant. Like I was witnessing the things that were happening around me. And, I guess I could say, I grew up fast. So by the time I was like 8 or 9, I was a little seasoned. Not fully, of course, because life experiences shape us.
Absolutely. But I think 8 or 9, and looking back, you've seen so much stuff.
Yeah.
Like it must have been like traumatizing.
It was. I didn't know it at the time, though. That's the interesting thing about trauma is it shows up later. Or it shows up in different settings,
At older stages, right?
Older stages in life, relationships, It's like I said, I really believe things get progressively better or progressively worse. And for me, it got progressively worse. And so growing up, at an young age, seeing all this stuff, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm a part of this, Like I want to be a part of this. I want to be with my family. I want them to enjoy my presence. You know what I mean? Whatever. And so I'd always be where the adults were at. And I would listen to them. I would hear their conversations. I would see how they move. And I do believe like that's another part of me. When I became a gang member, I was able to adopt these behaviors so easily because I had seen so much of it growing up.
It's as if you were being groomed for it.
As I was, as if I was being groomed, but I think unintentionally and unconsciously. Yeah. Like, I don't think, as I look back now in retrospect and I see them, I don't think in their minds they thought, like, I'm grooming my, whether it was my grandparents or whoever, I'm grooming my grandson for the California prison institutions. You know what I mean? I just think that they were dealing with their own stuff. Like, they were carrying their own shit.
And by default,
yeah. It got passed down.
That's deep. So where do you think, like, once you became a gang member yourself, things just spiraled out of control?
Yeah, things spiraled, but it was a buildup. Like, it didn't happen overnight. Matter of fact, what's interesting is I didn't want to be a gang member. When I got around 8 or 9, 10 maybe, 8 or 9 though, I would say, like, I started to feel pain. Like, things started to hurt. Things started to take a toll on me. The arguing in the house, the violence. There was, like I said, there was things I wanted to be a part of, and then there was things I was like, I know this is wrong. I know my grandma being beat, hit in the face with a boot. Like, I know that's wrong, and I know she, you know what I'm saying? Like, I seen the pain in her, which hurt me. I seen the pain that my mother was enduring, hurt me. And then I started, at that age, started to choose, like, and it's trippy to say this, but, like, I started to say, like, to myself, like, I got to be a man. Like, I got to figure some of this out. Like, how do I help them? Like, how do I help my mother? So I was the oldest of 5. And we all have different dads, except for my 2 younger brothers, they have the same dad. So as I look back now, like, so I didn't know who my father was. Didn't know where my name came from, nothing, right? And as I look back now, seeing my mother was looking for somebody. I can't say this because she's gone. She could only speak to this. But what I was seeing was she was looking for somebody to save her, like somebody to take care of her, to love her, and she found in love, or looking for love, like they say, in all the wrong places. And she would be with, different types of dudes. And it was, abusive situations. I remember my middle sister's dad, he was from the hood too. And, he would come to the pad and pick her up. And at that age, I was like, you know what? I'm going to be by my mother's side. Once I knew she was my mother, I said to myself, like, I want to take care of my mother. You know what I mean? Like, I'll be that man that you need. And that was something else too that started in me. Like, I started to, well, I could show you, I could be there for you. And from, like, being a people pleaser, like, it just intensified. You know what I mean? Like, I want to be the one that you need.
Like, her protector.
Her protector. Like, I want to protect you, I want to be the one that consoles you, that doesn't let anybody hurt you. But it was difficult because, like I said, she was living her own life.
Her own struggles.
And so, like, I remember a time she was with my middle sister's dad, and he was one of those fools, took care of his car, had everything clean, G'd up. And I used to always want to be with her. Wherever she went, I would want to go as well. And so he's picking her up, and she's in front of the pad, and I'm thinking I'm about to leave with her, so I'm following her. We get to the car, and my mother, we're about to get in the car, and he says, "Hey, I don't want that kid in my car. He's gonna fuck it up. He's gonna dirty my car."
He said it loud enough for you to hear?
He said it loud enough for me to hear it. And I remember my mother's eyes. Like, I know my mother loved me. You know what I'm saying? But I also knew that my mother had a void in her that she was trying to fill. You feel me? And I remember her looking at me and, like, struggling internally, and then walking over to me and saying, "Hey, mijo, I'm going to come back. Like, just wait for me right here. Be with grandma. I'm going to come back and I'm going to pick you up." And she left. And I wasn't mad at her. I was upset with him. Like, I was like, fuck this fool. You know what I mean? Like, in those days, I looked at my mother as a queen. You know what I'm saying? Like, she's dealing with a bunch of shit. And I want to be there for her, But as time progressed, it eventually got to the point where I started to look at her the same way I was looking at him. You get what I'm saying?
With hatred.
With, like, pain. It showed up as hatred. It showed up as anger, but it was hurt. And that a lot of that shit I didn't find out till years later though. You know, like a lot of this stuff I had to unpack in my adult life. But back then it was situations like that began to like hurt me and begin to shape me. I believe our experiences, they shape us. They shape the way we see ourselves, and they shape the way we see the world. They shape the way we live. They shape the way we move in the world. I was being shaped by my experiences. But there was always moments where I had like, you know, like I had an older cousin, and he was wise beyond his years, homie. Like, just he was young. He had a mustache already, like in elementary school. No yeah, and you know, he was just so wise. He would always come, and I was naive. You know, like I didn't understand how dangerous, like the world was, our world was. I didn't. I had seen things. I had seen enough things, but you know, like I had seen one time fools come by, throw bricks at the house, but my uncles and cousins respond accordingly, right? I didn't know how dangerous our world was, but he had a sense of it, which is interesting, you know. So he would always come and say, "Hey, you're all right. Hey, if you ever need anything, like I'm here for you. You know, I got you."
That's your cousin.
Yeah, that was my cousin. Anybody fucking with you in school? Like, nah, it's good. You know, all right. Just always know I got you. Like he had that protector instinct in him. And so we're growing up in all this stuff, right? And you know, like I said, it got worse and worse and worse. Eventually, my grandfather dies. We lose our house. You know, we were. I say we were poor because if you're brown and you're growing up at that time, like you're poor, we grow up poor. You know, we all grow up similar. We have similar experiences.
This is in the 90s?
Yeah, this is in the late 80s, early 90s. You know, and we're poor. My grandfather's doing the best he can, working for the trash company, taking care of everybody. But he passes, and you know, I thought I knew what like kind of being poor was, but we were extremely poor after that. We were extremely poor, homie. Like lights being turned off, you know, even the water. Like I remember at a young age, the water being turned off, and that's the cheapest bill to afford, you know, back then. And you know, I always say I know how to bird bath before I ever went to the joint. I learned how to bird bath at home because we would borrow water from the neighbors. Now, by this time, everything that my mother has gone through, she took to drugs. You know, that was her solution. It started off very light. You know, they would party down. They would go in the restroom. Everybody would party. And then eventually, you know, she got hooked on methamphetamine. And at that time in the 90s, it was hitting hard in everybody's community. And so she got addicted to meth. And things just got worse. You know, we were on welfare, of course. And she would take the whole check. She would literally like take the check out of the mailbox or intercept the mailman, and she would take the check. And I remember my grandmother, because that's her daughter. We struggled with law enforcement since we were kids. Like we struggled with the system, law enforcement. And I say all that to say this is, so when I was a kid, my mother started getting into fraud. And going back to my mother for a second, you know how she would leave me? Mm-hmm. She would always come back and like bless me with things. You know, like she would do her shit in the street and she would come back with like brand new Reebok classics, you know.
Something material.
Exactly, something material. Like, hey, this is for you, son. And I'd be like, damn, I felt so, you know, I felt like I was worthy, you know, and we'll probably get into that. But she would always come back. And, you know, and like I said, growing up, I don't know exactly what she's doing, but you know, she's doing something. She's coming back and she's with these dudes and they got a Pathfinder full of all kinds of brand new shit. And she'd pull up and be like, hey, get all this off the car, take it inside. It's for you guys. And then she would jam. So one time, you know, we were at the pad. I was a kid and I guess the cops were looking for her, but I had no idea. Like I said, there was also things I was naive to. So a police officer comes to the door one day, knocks at the door, and I answer it. And he's like, hey, what's up, Mio? You know, I'm a friend of your mom's. Mona, is she here? And I was like, you know, kind of confused, like a friend of my mom's. I never seen you before, you know. And he's like, oh, yeah, I'm a friend of your mom's, you know. And is she here? You know, we were supposed to hook up today, whatever. And I was like, oh, yeah, she's here. And he's like, go get her. I want to surprise her, though. You know, go get her, but don't tell her it's me, right? And I was like, all right, I'll go get her for you. And I go and I get my mom, and I'm like, hey, one of your friends is here. I think, I don't know who he had, one of the homies maybe, I don't know. She's like, oh, all right. She comes out, and as soon as she like opens the door to see who it was cracked a little. This fool grabs her by the wrist and yanks her off my porch. You feel me? Like yanks her into my yard. And I'm like, damn, what's going on here, right? They cuff her up. She's pissed, homie. I'm crying. It's my mom. And I'm crying like, why are you doing this to her, And now he's a whole different person,
He just turned into
Yeah, he turned into whatever. He had his intention to come there. And I say that to say this. After all that happens, they take her. I remember looking at her through the back of the police car, and she's crying. She's looking at me, telling me she loves me. She jams. And my grandmother comes over to me, and she's pissed, homie. She's upset. She's angry. One of the most angriest times I've seen her. And she looks me in the eye. She's like, don't ever in your life fucking trust a cop. Ugh. Ever. She's like, I don't care if I'm having a fucking stroke, you don't call 911. They're not for us. Every time they come here, they're going to do something like that to your mom. And I remember in that moment understanding like, oh shit, I fucked up. I did wrong. Don't ever call 911. And that's how we grew up.
Not trusting law enforcement.
Like not trusting law enforcement. Every time they came to the pad, and it was true. Every time I see them come to the pad, somebody was going to jail. You know what I'm saying? Every time they came to the pad, it was like, first question, you on probation or parole? You're on probation or parole? You know what I mean? Let me get your name down, put it on this gang card. That was the experience. So moving forward, as I grew up, like I was growing up with all these experiences, it was shaping the way I was seeing everything, shaping the way I was seeing the world. So I say that to say this now, when the welfare check was being taken by my mother, we didn't want to go to the county building because we didn't want to tell on her. You feel me? Mm. So instead of going to the county building and saying like, hey, we don't got no money because my mom's taking the check, we struggled, homie. Like we struggled for so long. I watched my grandma struggle with that, like not reporting her. It was like, how can we go to the welfare office and explain to them that money that's being sent
for us,
we're not getting it. And there was 5 of us, homie. So my grandmother's trying to do the best she can with SSI. And then I remember, so I'm jumping around a lot, but I'm going to get to the point. So I'll go back to, as we're going through this for a long time with the welfare check. Mm-hmm. I mean, up until I was already, after I got in the gang, we still went through it until we finally made a decision. But summer right before junior high school. But let me back up a little bit more. My older cousin, in my grandmother's backyard one day, the one I told you, mm-hmm. wise beyond his years, wise. He calls me to him, and we go to my grandmother's backyard, and he says to me, no matter what happens, homie, you and me, we're never going to get jumped into the barrio. No matter what. We're not going to be from the barrio. And I shook his hand, and I promised him. I said, I promise you. All these things are happening in our lives. It's stacking up. It's getting worse and worse. Things are happening here. Things are happening there. Financially, in the home, violence, alcoholism, drugs. It's just coming down on us, right? Summer right before junior high school, like I said, we're going lights on, lights off, water, maybe not. Having to go to school like that, figure things out. At that time, school became like my safe haven. I began to excel in school, homie, because I was trying to I guess I was trying to suppress and figure out a way to get through all this shit I was experiencing. I didn't even know that as a kid. But I fell in love with school. I did well in school. I was in the GATE program. You remember the GATE program?
No, I don't think so.
All right. It was in LA. It's called Gifted and Talented Education.
Oh, yes. Now I do remember it.
Okay. And if you were a smart kid, you would end up in that program. And it was it was foreign for somebody like me to be coming up from where I was coming up to end up in the GATE program, But I did well in school. I love school. I hated being at home.
So it's like you took all that energy from being at home and you just took it to school and you applied yourself.
And I applied myself.
Because it was like an escape.
It was an escape, homie. It was exactly that. It was escape. I didn't want to deal with what was happening at home. And it was an escape. And so I started to play the trumpet. I was in marching band, you know, and then I was going to junior high school in the GATE program. I was going to be in the GATE program in junior high school. Summer right before junior high, my cousin gets jumped into the water.
The one that
told me.
You guys...
We shook hands. We made a pact. He gets jumped into the water. Doesn't consult with me. Doesn't talk to me about it. Doesn't ask me my opinion. One day to the next, he's from the neighborhood. I had a house. There was a friend of mine I used to hang out with that lived around the corner from me. Like I said, my house, no matter where we lived, was always the hangout spot because all my cousins were all from the same gang. I used to go to this homie's house, and I guess you could say I would overstay my welcome. Okay. All right, because you know I didn't have a curfew, so I could be out until whatever time. Nobody was gonna come looking for me. Do whatever I want. And his mom would have to ask me. She'd be like, "Hey, Jose, it's like 10:30. You know, at night. It's like 11. You got to go home now. You know, Christian got to go to sleep." And I hated going home. I hated it.
And you were how old?
I was 12. I was 12 years old. And they had a female, you know, they had like basic cable TV. They always had food in their fridge. I just loved being at their house.
They had the whole package.
Yeah,
right
they had
there.
the whole package. They had like a semi-normal life. And so one night I go down there, and this is like everything's building up, homie. Everything's building up. My mother, it was struggling bad at this time. We're poor, you know, we're going through a lot. I go to his pad, and I knock at the door. Somebody comes to the peephole, but they don't answer. So I go to they had a window on the side. I go to the side window. I knock, and I said, "Hey, it's me, Jose." They turn off the living room light. They turn off the TV as if to pretend nobody was home. And I remember that shit hurt, homie. That shit hurt, right? And I walked back home. And there's, you know, two homies, one being another one of my cousins, like 16, another homie that was like 19. And the homie looks at me and he goes, "Hey, why you look so sad, homie? Your dog died or something?" And I'm like, "I'm good." And then he says, "You want to get jumped into the water?" And before I could consider it, think about it, the words had already left my mouth. And I said, "Yeah, homie, I'll get in tonight. I'll get jumped in tonight." We walked across the street, and my other cousin lived there, and they jumped me, homie. They jumped me, they kicked me, they beat on me. I fell, they kicked me. They beat on me. And after they were done, they hugged me and they embraced me. And they said, "I love you, homie." That decision changed the course of my life. That one decision changed the course of my life. And so that night, well, even right after that happened, my cousin, he goes into the pad and he gets a pair of Ben Davises, gray Ben Davises.
Creased up.
They were permanently creased. Did you ever see those ones that were stitched? So these Ben Davis were permanently creased, stitched. He brings them out to me and he says, "Try these on, homie." I try them on. They were like 3 times my size, right?
Size 50?
Right, size 50.
I had size 50s,
right? Size 50s, right? I put them on and he's looking at me and he goes, "Hey, you can borrow those, homie." And he looks at me and goes, "Matter of fact, homie, you can keep those pants. Those are yours." Dog, I wore those pants for like a month straight, homie. Serio. Every day I wore those pants, homie.
And you didn't have to recrease them because they were creased.
They were permanently creased, stitched. And shortly after that decision, my cousin Marlo, who we made a pact in my grandmother's backyard and said we would never join a gang. He was shot in the face with a 12 gauge. He was killed. He was murdered at 14 years old. You know, I was naive and I wasn't. There was things I knew and there was things I didn't. There was things I thought I knew and there was things I needed to learn. His death impacted my life. You know, it changed things for me. It made me understand, like, this is real, homie. Like, this is it. You know, you're set upon a path. And there's no getting off. You know, I remember even being like at the car wash after, And I just looked around and his gang members and I'm like, damn, this is my life. You know, there ain't no crying now. You know, there ain't no turning back. And my life became violent. You know what I mean? My life, I went from being this kid, this little kid, big heart, wanting to please everybody, wanting to make everybody happy, joyous, and free, to realizing like death's around every corner, homie. You know, and you're not going to run from it as best as you can. You know, you're going to face it. And it became like to the point where not only are you going to face it, but you're going to chase it. You're going to pursue it because it's coming for you. But I had to learn all that. Like I said, it didn't just happen overnight. I was still a little boy, homie. Like we were little kids. We were little boys. Like we played with army men. You know, we played in my grandmother's yard. Like we were little kids. And but it was one experience after another that, you know, helped to create this character that I became, and that I thought I was. And so 12 years old, boom, that happens. Life it becomes a little blur, you know, being the violence that comes, then it's like, never thought I ever had, before that, I never thought like, damn, I need a pistol or I need a gun. It was, all that stuff just starts to come and life starts to move pretty fast and a lot happens in a day.
And that's when your cousin got shot and killed.
That's when my cousin was shot.
That's when
it
shifted everything. Like
things shifted. I definitely had a paradigm shift. I remember realizing that there was nobody to really talk to about things. You know, you got to figure shit out. You know, you got to learn and adapt and survive. You got to survive. Like it started to become, I guess, reality. You know, they say cold glass of water. That was the coldest glass of water I've ever got thrown in my face. Was like, your mom is on drugs, homie. Your cousin is dead. You know, he ain't coming back. You are poor. Like, this is your life. Vatos can potentially smoke you. You know what I mean? The homies around you, they're not going to hug you and comfort you. That doesn't exist. It's program time. You know what I mean? It was like reality, like hit me in a way that was like, wake up, Jose. This ain't no, you know, this ain't no video game. This ain't cops and robbers. You know what I mean? This ain't Army Man in your grandmother's yard. This is right here, right now, and it's in your face. It's real life. And so I started to, okay, this is where the resentment started to happen. You know, this is where I started to see, it was like I started to see everything for what it was. You know what I mean? But I didn't know really, I didn't know really what it was, because had I known really what it was, I would understand my mother's pain. But this is where I thought I was seeing things for what they really were. And resentments, I was like, damn, why is my mom doing this shit to me? You know what I mean? Why does she not love us? And it just started to build and build. And that also helped to fuel the character that I created. You know, the resentments, I started to resent my mother. You know what I mean? It got so bad. I remember, you know, being like 13, 14 years old. And I used to daydream about my funeral, homie. I used to sit there as a kid and I used to daydream, and I used to think like, I wonder if my mother will cry for me. I wonder if my mom will stop doing drugs if I die. I wonder if that'll stop her. I used to think shit like that. I used to be just like, I wonder, maybe if I die, she'll take care of my brothers and sisters. Maybe if someone smokes me, it'll change her life. You know what I mean?
That's some deep shit right there. Wow. Wow. You were how old?
I was like 13, 14 years old.
Man.
Yeah.
And you would just, yeah, this is kind of intense. And you would have those thoughts, and where did things go from there?
You know, it was, so about 14 years old, I said, I remember looking at my grandma struggling. Like I said, we didn't want to contact the welfare. You know what I mean? There was things that my grandmother wasn't willing to do. I used to tell her, like, go to the welfare office, you know, get that check. And it just wasn't happening because, like I said, the way we grew up and what we believe. So then I was like, all right. And there was also moments in time where, like, my mom showed me things. She taught me shit. You know, she taught me how to hustle. you know, how to sell crack, fake crack, fucking soap, potato crack. You know, I used to sell potato crack. You know, it was just, I started to learn. And then, like I said, older cousins that I had, like I had cousins that would look at me and they would say, hey, homie, you're poor, homie. Like my tia's struggling. Like it's like, get with the program. You know what I mean? Like, what are we going to do? Like, let's go steal some rims.
How are we going to make money?
Yeah, how are we going to make money? Like, let's go steal some rims. You know, you got to sell something. Like, get a little bit of feria, invest it in some dope. Like, what are you going to do? So I'm learning all these things, right? Like I said, I sold potato crack. You know what I mean? And you know, and you learn as you go, right? Like you learn as you go. I remember, homie. So I learned how to make some fake dope, right? And I'm like, okay, I don't got no money. I really, at this point, I don't want to rob really, you know, but I will if I have to. But like, let me try to sell some dope first, right? I got a pistol that was given to me. I don't got no bullets, right? I got a pistol. My primo says, look, fool. He tells me, laces me up. We got a pistol for you, but we don't got no bullets. So don't bring it out the house. You feel me? Like, leave that shit until we get some bullets. Till we get some bullets, you can bring it out. So
right now it's our show, bro.
Just you get right now, it's just, but he was smart. You know, hey, leave it in the pad. You don't need it. You can't do nothing with it, but you're a young kid. You're not going to listen to nobody, right? You got a pistol. You know, I remember I go in the restroom with it. You know, I'm looking at it. And he says, but leave it in the house for now until we get you some bullets. He would, you know, say things like, if you're going to sell fake dope, you make the sale and get on. You know what I mean? You don't stick around after. Little things that you hear, but you don't really listen to, right? You got to learn this shit for yourself. So all the things that I was taught, I fucking did the complete opposite of, right? So one, boom, I got the pistol on me, right? No bullets. No bullets. Got the pistol. I get my sacks of fake dope. I get some potato, chop it up, you know, put some Orajel on it. I was taught like all those things I had,
you
right?
knew how to make fake.
So yeah, like, I'm like,
you made it look real.
Yeah, like if you put it in your mouth, you're gonna think it's real dope, right? So if I do the handoff, you put it in your mouth, you're gonna get on thinking it's dope. So I got my little sacks. Says don't do anything by the pad. You know what I mean? Don't do anything close to the pad. Make the sale, get on. Don't bring the cueta out. I do all the complete opposite, right? I try to make the first sale by the pad. You know what I mean? Like I'm young, I'm a kid.
And you were how old?
Like 14 years old.
14, all
14 right. Going on 15. Sounding potato crack. Sounding potato crack. Boom. Come out the pad. You know, I see, like I said, you know, a lot of this stuff you learn later on in life, but now so there's a homeless dude pushing a cart with his girlfriend, whatever, boom, looking for some dope. Trying to get like a dime for $7, whatever. I said, look, boom, show them it. I tell them they're chunky, boom, put it away. Right? I'm a kid, homie. I'm trying to grind, right? Boom, show them, flashing the dope, boom, they're chunky. What's up? Like, all right, yeah, boom, let's do it. Do the tranza, and it's not far from where I'm stationed at. You feel me? So boom, do the tranza. He leaves. In my mind, I'm thinking this dude, he's homeless, homie. He's a basehead. You know what I mean? Like I'm a cholo. I'm a gang member. You know what I'm saying? I'm holding my own, right? He jams. He comes back. This fool, right? And he's hotter than fish grease, homie. This fool's hotter than fish grease, right? He comes back. And he's pissed, homie. He's like, give me my shit, homie. And I said, what, homie? I was like, you better bounce, dog. You better get up out of here, homie. You know what I mean? Bang on him. Somebody like that, homie, that's surviving in the streets, dog. And I'm a kid. You don't know all these things until later on in life, right?
Uh-huh.
He's not leaving, homie, until he gets his shit, right? This fool's not leaving, homie.
He wants his dope or his money.
He wants his dope or his money, right? He's like, give me my shit, homie. Like, and I'm like, I said, dog, I flash him. You know, I'm like, homie, you better get up out of here. This fool didn't give a fuck, right? Can I cuss on this?
Yeah,
yeah. This fool is, you know, he's kind of like us in a way. He's staring death in the face and telling it, Gaiga. You know what I mean? He's like, give me my money or my dope, homie. And I said, hey, homie, you better bounce. Like, you better get up out of here, right? And he's coming at me, dog. You know what I mean? He's coming at me, and I'm like, what do I do? You know what I'm saying? This fool's coming at me, grown-ass man. So I pull it out. You know, I pull it out, and I cock it. I fake cock it. There's no bullets. You know what I mean? I fake cock it, and I'm like, hey, homie, you better bounce, dog. There's going to be problems around here, homie. Like, get up out of here. I'm not playing with you, dog. This fool's, he started screaming, he's all, shoot me, motherfucker, shoot me. I'm like, damn, bro. Anyway, long story short, I run and have to get on, right? Lose the cuete.
With everything.
With everything, lose that. So I'm facing defeat is what I'm saying, right? Like I'm attempting, and the whole purpose of everything that I'm doing is to bring a little bit of money into the pad. Like those are my intentions. I never wanted the shoes, the car, the chain. I didn't want none of that.
You just wanted to.
I wanted to be able to help my grandma, right?
Okay.
All that happens, boom. I'm defeated. I'm like, damn, all right, what do I do next? You know, like I said, I had older cousins. Okay, boom, we're going to go steal some rims, steal the rims, steal enough rims to get a little bit of money, to get a little bit of dope, and then get a little bit more dope. And then by the time I was 15, I felt like a grown man. You know what I mean? Like, I'm taking care of my grandma. I'm taking care of my brothers and sisters. But being a gang member complicates everything. You know what I'm saying? Like, taking care of your family, like I'm trying to bring money to the house, but yet I'm still a gang member. So all these other dynamics exist. You know what I'm saying? Like enemies and having to go through all that shit. So my first case ever though was I got caught with dope at 15. 15 years old, I was arrested with a substantial amount of dope. And even in the police report, dog, like I remember I'm caught, dead bang. I'm in the back of his cop car. He comes up to me and he says to me, he goes, "You're young, man. You're young, and why do you have so much dope in your car?" And my response to him, they took it. That was my only response. Was I said, "I'm trying to make some money to feed my family, homie." That was my response.
And what'd he say to that?
And he just shook his head. He had no response to that. I went to juvenile hall, got out, and then shortly after, at 16, then I caught a gang-related shooting. You know, I caught a shooting at unoccupied dwelling. Got out at 18, got busted again at 18, and for another violent incident. Got out at 22, and got locked up again like about 6 months later for another gang-related incident. And this time I was fighting 55 years of life for attempted murder. And so all those years kind of just moved by. You know, they kind of just flew by, actually. Not moved by, they flew by. There were certain moments that I remember that I was making decisions about my future, right? Like, I remember being in juvenile hall at 16, and my mom, you know, by this time our relationship is estranged. And, you know, kids are going to visit, and I remember being so upset in my cell. Like, I'm in my cell. I think I had just gotten into a fight, so I was on unit separation. I was by myself. And I remember just being so upset, right? And then I said to myself, I go, "This is your life, homie. Like, this is your life. This is the hand you were dealt, and you're going to play it until it's over." 16, boom. And then years go by. I remember years going by. I remember coming home from prison at 22. And you learn everything you have to learn. By this time, you're understanding everything, you know, like how fucked up it is, you know, how messed up things are and how bad they can get, right? So I come home and I do want to work. I did want to do right. I got a bike, you know, I'm riding my bike to work. But the way, and this goes back to like systems and trying to, like, I didn't know how to navigate systems. The parole officer, he tells me, "You need to find an address." I had put in for a transfer while I was in prison to live outside of my neighborhood. That didn't happen. And so I paroled right back to my neighborhood. You know what I mean? And everything that comes, everything was the same. And I remember I had a moment one time when I was like, damn, there is no doing good. Like, there is no fixing your life. Like, you know, just those moments where you just have to accept it. Like, this is your life. As much as I wanted inside to do good or something different, it was like, this is your life. Time went by. So eventually I struck a plea bargain. I got 6 years. I went upstate. Now, by this time, the relationship with my mom was, you know, homies would say, "Hey, your mom's over here getting high. You know, you should probably go check on her." My response to them was, "I don't have a mother, homie." That's how hurt I was. That's how broken I was. Get busted, you know, on this case, go to the pen, when I got to the state, I got word that my mother had died. You know, like I said, this character I had created this character, you know, and I thought I was that. I thought I was everything that I thought I was, right? But come to find out I wasn't, and that was a hard pill to swallow. But it was receiving the news that my mother had died was such a tragedy, you know, but then going back to, like, I wasn't able to express it or talk about it. You know, like, that wasn't the place for it. Prison's not the place to talk about your feelings.
Or your emotions.
Your emotions, your wants, your desires, your hopes, you know, they even say it. Like, I don't know if they still do this, but back when I was growing up, they used to say, like, when you get to the joint, homie, you mail your feelings home.
Ooh.
Get an envelope, they would say. Send them feelings home, dog. This ain't no place for them. So, you know, I received it. I was shattered inside, but I was suffering in silence, you know. And once again, things get progressively worse. I try to stuff it down, you know what I mean? Like I did everything else in life, but with this, there was no stuffing it down. It felt like my soul was broken, homie. That's what it felt like.
And then to top it off, you were in there in a cell.
Exactly. In there, in a cell.
How do you manage? Like, how? It's just, yeah, that's the recipe for disaster then.
Right, yeah. And I remember growing up and I would say, like, I'm never going to be a tecato, you know. I'll never put a needle in my arm. You know, all these nevers, all these things I said I wouldn't do, I wouldn't be. What's interesting is everything that I hated, homie, I became. Everything I grew up fearing, despising, scared of, I became. You know, everything I hated, I became. I was in there, you know, like I said, I was struggling, and I was also trying to figure out, like, what's happening to me. You know what I mean? Like, why does this hurt so bad? Like, why now do I want my mother more than ever, right? It's because I was never honest with myself to begin with. And what's a trip is, I didn't know this like then, but I know this now, is that my mother did more for me in death than she was able to do for me in life, because that was the beginning of something different. It really was. As tragic as it was the beginning of something else, something different in my life.
How did she pass?
She got pneumonia, you know, my mother was using, and she ended up getting pneumonia and swine flu. And she didn't get no medical. She was out there, you know. She was out there like so many others are out there and, you know, using. They get sick. They're not going to go to the doctor. And she passed, you know. And she was also in an abusive relationship. They were both addicts. He was a heroin addict. She was addicted to meth. You know, I heard a lot of different stories. He wouldn't let her get medication or different shit, you know. I wasn't there, so exactly how it went down. But she was out there, you know. She was on a run. She would try to clean up throughout her life, but she struggled, homie. And she was on a run and struggling with this dude, and he was a heroin addict, and, you know, her thing was meth, and she passed.
How you must have had all these built up emotions in there. Did it translate into violence in there?
Yeah, it did. It translated to violence and addiction, you know. So it's like, and as I look back now, like I was trying to run from it. But when you're in prison, you know, there's no running from it. And then also, too, just being a human being and even out here, like everywhere you go, there you are, homie. You know what I mean? So no matter what I try to do, drinking Pruno, using drugs, going to the hole, getting in stuff on 1 yard, getting transferred to other prisons, there was no running from it. What happened was just that, like you were saying, is I started to behave just irrational. You know what I mean? I started to pursue death on a whole nother level. And I ended up in the hole. You know, it was my last shoe term. And I was addicted to heroin. I was strung out, and I was beat. You know, I was beat physically. We had a situation. I got hit with the monodoc. You know, that thing that extends with the ball in the end. And so I'm physically wounded. emotionally and spiritually, and I'm just wounded, right? I'm in the hole now, and I'm back there, and just everything starts to come down on me again. And I'm asking myself, like, what's going on? Like, why do you feel so much pain? You know, why can you not just fucking get past this? And it was so much hurt, bro. It was just so much hurt. You know, I end up with Sally. You know, I would wait at night, you know, for him to go to bed, and I would just weep. I would just cry myself to sleep, dog, because I was just so hurt, right? I'd get up early in the morning, make sure wash my face, and, you know, I'd be up, we'd program. And there was little things, like experiences, like I said, all the experiences that led me to that. So in the hole, I guess ACLU had came in years ago or whatever, and they were leaving us back there too long. Fools were losing it. So they would have therapists walk the tier, right? But we couldn't talk to them. It just goes against our culture. And I remember when they would get up, when they would start to walk, I would look at them and be like, damn, inside I was yearning to like get this shit out, this pain, this hurt, right? And they would walk, and then as soon as they would get to my cell, I would say, keep walking, homie, don't stop right here. Oh, you need anybody? No, I don't need nobody to talk to. Just keep walking. Because you would just see nothing but shadows of men. That's how it looks like in the hole. With the honeycomb doors, you just see nothing but shadows of men in boxes, like little concrete boxes. And you know that they're looking at you, seeing like, what are you going to do? You know what I mean? But they probably all want the same thing too. They're probably all hurting as well. I can't speak for them, but, you know, I do believe us as human beings, like we grow up, we want the same things. You know what I mean? We want to love and be loved. But that wasn't the place for it, right?
I just think that environment is not inviting to, hey, express yourself. Hey, this, or let's deal with your emotions appropriately.
Exactly.
I don't think that's the environment for it, you know, because the culture, there's certain things you got to follow and certain things you got to do, and it prevents. So now you got to just, even though you're probably screaming out like, dude, I need to talk to somebody.
Right.
But it's like, you're
stuffing it all down.
Stuffing it all down.
Yeah.
And then it comes out in a different way. Now you're just fucking fools up. You're doing this. You're doing that. It must have been tough.
Yeah, it was, you know. And at a point too, like losing control of yourself. Like you're no longer in control, right? But there was this thing in me, like this, the pain led to also like this curiosity, right? Like I'm hurting so bad, but I want to understand, like, what the fuck is this in me? What am I feeling, right? Why am I like this? And I used to sit there and I started to think about my life. You know, I would look at myself and I would look at my hands and shit, and I'd be like, how did you get here? You know, how did you get to this point? How did you end up like this? There was a moment I had, we had these little tiny square mirrors. And I remember one day walking up to that mirror and I'm looking myself right in the eye. And inside of myself, I asked myself, who the fuck are you? Like, who are you, homie? You know what I mean? And that was a good question at the time. I didn't know how good of a question it was. And I didn't know, like, all the discoveries I was going to have. But I sat down, I used to sit down, and I started to think about my childhood when I was a kid. And I remember being a little boy and watching sitcoms on TV. And, you know, just all these, whatever, sitcoms that we had growing up. Mine
novelas?
Novelas. Mine was Family Matters, though.
Hey,
what's interesting.
I watched Family Matters, Saved by the Bell. Because it was Family Matters and then Saved by the Bell.
Yep.
And then that's when the Fresh Prince came out, too.
Fresh Prince, you know. But it was just all these sitcoms, A Small Wonder. I used to watch these sitcoms, but Family Matters for me was, when I was a little boy, I used to sit in front of the TV and I used to yearn for the family that I saw on television. Like the dad, the mom, just all those things. Like, how was school today? You know what I mean? Things that were just they just seemed so out of reach and so foreign. Right? Man. And here I was, a grown man. I'm all tatted up. I'm sitting in this cell. And I was yearning for those things again, homie. And there was a part of me that was yearning, and there was another part of me that was like, this is never gonna happen for you. You know, but this time I couldn't just move on. Like I couldn't just move past it for some reason. And I truly believe it was the death of my mother. It was the death of my mother that led to this like abrupt halt in my life. And these questions and the curiosity, like, is there something else? Could there be? You know, is there a God? I was asking things like that, like, are you real? These subtle prayers, homie. These, not these grand, like, you know, I'm praying to you because I want to get released early. No, it was like, are you real, homie? Like it was a subtle prayer, like, are you real? Do you exist? To like, show yourself to me. Like, show yourself to me. I remember even so, along with the therapist that would walk the tier, sometimes like this pastor or priest would walk the tier too with books. And my Sally was an artist, right? But he was also atheist, so he never talked about God, none of that stuff. But he would draw. He was a great artist. And so what he would do is he would rip the literature out of the book and he would draw on the back of the white part of the book. Mm-hmm. And so, like I said, I had this curiosity. And I remember one day I seen the dude walking with the cart of books and Bibles and stuff. And I tell my Sally, I go, hey, you want me to get you some of those pamphlets on me? And he's like, yeah, grab me a few. So he's on his bunk doing his thing. I go to the tray slot and I said, hey, you got some pamphlets? Let me get a few of those, like 4 or 5 of them, as many as you can give me. And he's like, all right. And I whispered to him, I said, hey, you got a Bible in there? And this fool, like, he was moved too. He gets the Bible, he gets the books, and he hands them both to me. And I grab the Bible with my left hand, the pamphlets with my right hand, and I bring them in the tray slot, and I go like this. I put the Bible in my locker real quick, and I hand the pamphlets to my Sally, and I leave it there. You know, I know it's there, but I just leave it there. I'm not gonna bust it out. And that night, late at night, I go get it. You know, I get. I didn't go to sleep. I wait and I go get the Bible, and there was a little crack of light that used to come through the back of our cell. A little crack of light, and I get the Bible out and I open it up, and I'm like holding it up to the light, but it was an old King James version, right? So it was like, "Thou art shall not," and I'm like, "Damn, what is it saying, homie?" You know what I mean? So I would try to read as much as I could, and then I would put it away. And the next night I'll do the same. I'd open it up, try to read as much as I could, and then put it away. And I started to seek, I guess. You know, I started to seek. And, you know, they say if you seek, you will find.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I started to have these realizations. Like, you know, I started to read and I started to hope. And, you know, I got out of there. That was my last shoot term. I got out of the hole, but I didn't get out of the pen. And I was maxed out already. There was, you know, I was supposed to do 6 with 85, but I ended up doing the whole 6. And being an addict now and having all this baggage, having all these things and being so unaware, right, of everything that I was feeling, everything I had been through, so unaware. I came home like that. I came home. And this time around, I felt like I didn't fit in out here no more. You know, I just felt like.
You think something just clicked? Like, okay, look, I know I'm going back to the same situation that got me here, but I don't know. Maybe there's other options. Like you started feeling hope.
Yeah, I started feeling hope, but the reality was when I came home, like I just felt like I didn't fit in society no more, is what I mean.
Okay.
It was like, you know, I came home and I didn't understand everything I had going on in me. It was like just a wounded man, homie, straight up. I just came home wounded. You feel me? And I didn't think I was gonna make it this time around. You know, as much as I wanted to change things, as much as I had this little bit of hope of doing something different, and there could possibly something else, it would have never happened without the help of other human beings. Cause I was just so wounded
and defeated.
Defeated, homie. I was defeated. You know, I came home and I was just like, damn, I went to work in factories and burning. You know, I went through an agency. I'm on parole. I'm on high control parole. I'm dealing with all these things. I'm going from one factory to another. I'm getting 4 hours in one factory, then driving to Southgate to get another 4 hours. You know what I mean? And I'm just wearing Ben Davis all tirado, just shirt all dirty every day. Just struggling now with not with the work part of it, but with the emotional part of it. Like, I just don't fit in anymore. You know what I mean? Like, I just didn't fit in. There's so much more to it. I feel like I've taken up so much space though, kind of talking like what.
No, just keep it going because this is like,
all right.
This is like I'm into this, bro.
Yeah?
Like, you know,
Okay.
this is a powerful story.
All right.
You know, so
because I want to know also, what do you want to know? Like, what else? Like, there's so much to it.
I want to know from point A, your childhood, your traumas, all the shit you've been through. And then how you end up at Homeboy Industries.
All right.
How you end up being the VP. How you end up with being a beautiful soul, bro. Like, you know, I want people to see like the raw and uncut. And then to the end polished product that you are.
All right.
Because people need to hear this. Because people need to understand that sometimes we're lost. We all deal with our bullshit. We all deal with our struggles, with our tribulations. I have my own. You know, my own is a different story, and it's not better or worse than yours. You know, we all have our own book, our own stuff that we go through. But at the end of the day, we're all humans, and we all go through the same shit, but just at different levels.
Yeah.
You know, you know, my dad was, I had both of my parents, but they were tough.
Okay.
Cold. Like, I was in love as a kid. You know what I mean? Yeah, I had them there, but it was traditional. It was, I'm going to go to work. Se iba, come back at 8. So it's like I had them, but I didn't have them. But, you know, now I understand that coming as an immigrant, the struggles that they had to go through. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think everybody goes through different, you know, everybody goes through something different, you know? I was introduced to the gang culture. I wasn't born into it. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah,
you know?
it does. Yeah.
I come from an immigrant family, and I grew up in the streets, you know? But we weren't, like, my parents weren't gang members or nothing like that. But they have their own issues.
Yeah.
And then the bullshit that I had to deal with because I was angry.
Yeah.
I was an angry fucking kid. I was trying to fight everybody. I was trying to, you know, like, I dealt with, you know, substance abuse. And I've been drinking since I was 12. Heavily.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think I ever said that shit. You know, since I was 12, you know, till recent, like 6 years ago that I stopped because it was doing so much damage. But yet I was doing so much good stuff, but I've always been, I think, a hurt individual.
Yeah.
And that's why I'll show you the pictures of me always like this, always. But I was on some, I was on a good one. Yeah. I ain't gonna say what, you know, I was fucking just always angry. Yeah. Always angry. And you know, that's what I want people to see. Like, listen, no matter what, no matter if you're first generation, second generation, if you grow into the gangbanging or if you grew up in that type of environment, it's okay, homie. It's okay.
Yeah.
There's a way out.
Yeah.
You don't have to, I think, and I was so just listening to your story that I really didn't say much, but it's impactful. And I think that as kids, we're a product of our environment, but as an adult, we're a product of our mindset.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that has to, you know, but it's like, I told somebody this. I said, you know, old houses, they have those old fucking electrical panels and all that shit. Mm-hmm. And then as time progresses, like, okay, well, we need to update the fucking panel to be up to date with, you know, the current construction and shit like that. I felt like I had to do so much. I had to update my panel.
Yeah, same, homie.
You know, because it's the same. It's just so much shit and so much baggage that I had to deal with for me to be in the position that I'm in. And I'm free. I'm at peace. Yeah. I'm at peace, bro. I love my life. This is probably for the first time where, like, in life that I feel that I'm the most unselfish. and I care about my kids. Like
That's
they
right.
mean so much to me.
Yeah, same. Homie.
And I care about
Same.
my parents. They did whatever. I don't
Yeah.
blame them.
Yeah,
I've accepted it. Like, okay, it's cool. I still love you.
yeah,
I'm okay with it. Like, oh, you didn't hug me. Okay, whatever. I understand, and it's okay. I don't know what they were going through as
Yeah.
immigrants here.
yeah.
I don't.
A lot of that
I
shit's
could just,
passed down.
you know,
yeah.
and I just think like, my dad used to beat the shit out of us like we were fucking adults and we were kids. Dog, like I wouldn't do that to my kids.
Yep.
You know? So I had to deal with all that. And I shared this story when I met with you. I said this. I knew I was destined to do great shit, you know, because God was with me. I believe. I have faith.
That's right.
There's some things in life that, he got me out of some shit that I'm just like, God damn, like this is crazy. So like you do have a bigger plan for me.
Yeah.
And I feel it. I just didn't believe it at the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Because I felt that people that come from where I come from don't grow up to do big shit.
Yeah.
Especially that they're in that culture and we're fucking, yeah. So I never thought that this could be possible for me until I started believing and, you know, starting accepting certain things. And I went to church, like this was 9 years ago. And I sat there and I said, all right, like I know you're going to continue blessing me and I know what's coming my way, but I need you to help me. Just help me heal. Help me. I don't want to drink. I just want to be a better person.
Yeah.
And I did that.
That's
and
right.
since then, I mean, I have a drink here and there, but I think 2 months ago when I was like, okay, that's it. Complete.
Yeah.
Here, you know, I just don't like that person. Is that weird?
No, it's not weird. It's you hit so many points, like the drinking at an early age, you know, like these things that even you hit a lot of good points because even when you think about like immigrant parents, even my parents, like being brown, right? Generational trauma, oppression, you know what I mean? Racism, all those things that existed in their days that don't exist in ours now. Things have changed, but they've manifested in different like forms.
Yeah.
Like systematic oppression and just, but you think about what they went through and I look back, I'm like that, like, damn, you know, I don't know what they took to the grave with them. I don't know all the pain, but I do know this, homie, hurt people.
Yeah.
Like that's for real, you know, and I do know this. I had my first drink at 8, you know what I mean? And I got drunk and not knowing it, then I did want to escape. I didn't want to face the hurt inside nor the hurt outside. You know, we try to do our best that we can to escape it. You know what I mean? It's hard to face it. And just think about this, being a little boy, how could you face it at that age alone? Not fully understanding things, a little boy, you're going to face all this pain. How? You can't. It's impossible. You know what I mean? It's like when you talk about destiny, like this was destined. This was destined. Whatever happened, it happened. You know what I mean? But it is about what happens now. You know, I tell people, I tell my kids, I go, it's not about the things that happen to you. It's about what you do after the things that happen to you. You know, and I can speak from experience. I had a lot of hurtful things happen to me. And I responded in a way that I wish I didn't. But, you know, even that I can't go back in time now. But what I could do now is having the information and the insight and also the practice. Because this ain't just one of those things where, you know, it was one and done. Like I had this epiphany and this, you know, maybe for some that happens, but for me it was, I had to develop practices. I had to implement structures in my life that prevented me from ever going back to living like that. You know what I mean? You know, putting God first, understanding I was connected to this higher source, you know, understanding so was my mother. Understanding you can't have the day without the night, homie.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You can't have the sunshine without the rain. Like understanding all that, like that everything came as a package deal. You know what I'm saying? And being able to accept it and embrace it and walk through it. And those practices, I still got to have them today. Because if I don't have them, then I'm not right inside. But you hit so many great things, like, you know, not receiving love, but like, how did you find then how were you able to now not receiving that love? Like, how were you able to find a way to be the giver of love?
That's a good question. I just think that seeing my kids, I can't describe it, but just when I see them, and then I see how they were with me, and then it kind of hurts me.
Yeah.
I'm like, damn, I would never do that to my kids.
Yeah.
So then it just feels like, okay, this was done to you. It's okay. It's not accept it. They didn't know any better, but now I know better. So I can't repeat this cycle.
Yep.
Because now I know right from wrong.
Yep.
And this love that I give my kids, man, it's just like, shit. Dude, I'm doing a daddy-daughter dance, dog, that I practiced yesterday, dog. I'm fucking in shorts. I'm fucking covered. I'm in shorts and a short sleeve doing a fucking dance. And my daughter was so happy, jumped. That's love.
That's right. Yeah.
I didn't give a shit who was there, who was watching me. The dads were probably like, ay, güey, este pinche cholo, like, what's up with this fool,
Yeah.
Because I'm always dressed. I always go.
Yeah.
But yesterday I took the day off just to be with them. And then I went in shorts. And in the short sleeve. And, you would see it. You would be like, oh, that looks funny. It's a big-ass dude with all these tattoos just fucking singing and dancing. And I was having the time of my life. But to see that smile.
Yeah.
Fuck, bro. It just, I don't know. It just hits.
Yeah.
It just hits a spot that I never thought that I could feel that.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and definitely that. It's like love is powerful, homie.
Yeah, and something that's always going to weigh heavy on me is that I didn't give that to my older son because I was 18. I was young and stupid.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah.
But he'll come around, and I told him I'm sorry. No shit. He'll come around,
Yeah.
And I'll be waiting for him with arms open, bro. Like, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
But my other two get to experience that. It's not fair for him, but I'm a different man at 18 than at 39.
Of course.
So,
yeah. We don't know what we don't know. You know what I mean? And there's no explanation for like what area code or zip code we get born into, you know what I mean? Of what parents we get born into, what home we get brought into. But the beautiful thing about like today is there's just so many people, there's so many organizations, there's just so many things that are resourceful, right? And because of those resources, we're able to create our own internal resources. Like I think about everyone I encountered back then, like growing up and feeling that sense of not being loved. Like I didn't love myself, straight up. Like I believed in these experiences because it wasn't the people, they were having their own experience. Like I said, they weren't intentionally in their mind thinking like, I want to hurt my son. Like I want to break him. It was just everyone is living their own experience, right? And experiencing their own pain and trauma and dealing with that shit the best way they can, And I received it and I responded to it the way that I did. You think about trauma, homie, like, 5 children can grow up in the same household. All of them encounter the same experience with trauma. And one of them might be violent. One of them might be a drug addict. One of them might be in abusive relationships. The other one might run away. Whatever the case is, right? Because as humans, like this ain't cookie cutter. We all experience trauma and respond to trauma the way we do, right? And so I say that to say this, like I responded to trauma in my behavior and the choices that I made, and where I ended up. But when I realized that I was being fueled by these unseen fucking stories and narratives, then I was able to, but you have to go through each and every one of them sometimes, like why the fighting stuff, like for instance, what's up with that? Like where did that come from? Being molested as a little boy, for instance. And saying, in that experience, the wound that's left behind is I'm not going to let another man ever fucking touch me. I'm not going to let a man, matter of fact, get in within arm's reach of me. Because that's just not going to happen again, right? Mm-hmm. So the wound that's left behind. Now that wound, I was listening to this podcast the other day, and this doctor was on there talking about trauma. And he was talking about trauma we think is the story, the thing that happened to us, like the experience. He's like, it's not. Because if it was the story that happened to us, there's no hope for us, right? Mm-hmm. But trauma is the wound that's left behind. And you ever think about wounds, right? Like some wounds are like callous. Like I have a scar right here. I can scratch it, you don't feel it. Because the wound is just, it's calloused. Some wounds are very sensitive. If you go like that to them, they burn, right? Think about us being violent, reacting so fast. Why? The wound was so sensitive, homie. It was so sensitive, that wound, that I was willing to get busy right there on the spot. Or there's other wounds in some of our relationships where we're not talking, we're not speaking because the wound is so calloused. It's just so hardened, right? Like it's blocking me from even experiencing what's happening in front of me. So I'm gonna come back to that, but when I came home, I was so wounded everywhere, emotionally bleeding out. All right, wounds everywhere and didn't even know they existed. Give you an example. So I got married while I was in prison. I got out of the hole, I got married while I was in prison.
No way.
Couldn't even receive love, homie. Couldn't even receive it. Couldn't receive love, couldn't open the door to love if it was banging and kicking down the door because I was so wounded, right? Come home, I'm doing what I thought was, work, be a man, do all these things. We'd go to the supermarket, and she would get when you go to the red thing, you pull the tag to get the meat, and I would immediately start an argument with her. Immediately, homie. Like, whatever, any little thing. Just as soon as she pulled that tag, I would start an argument with her. Why don't you get meat for the whole week? What? I'm gonna get some fresh meat. Why don't you freeze the meat? Or matter of fact, why don't you get the meat that's already packaged? Right? True. Why are you waiting in line, in this big ass line? It doesn't make any sense, Trying to make her feel bad, like if she's doing something wrong. Why? Because I did not feel comfortable in that grocery store, homie.
So you wanted to bounce?
I wanted to leave. Matter of fact, I didn't even want to go to the store at all. I didn't even want to be there. But I didn't say that to anybody. You get me? I didn't want to walk in that store and be around people and stand in this line. Why? Because my whole body was uncomfortable. I'll try my best to bring everything back together. When I was 19 years old, I remember being in the joint. And, whatever you want to call it, fear, trauma responses, like at that point in time, being that age, it was like full throttle, full steam ahead, whatever. Violence, fighting, all that stuff that comes with it is just, get you in there, nosedive into this. Experiencing certain things in prison, homie, they shape you. Like, it fucks with you. It messes with you. Excuse my language. It messes with you, like where your body doesn't feel the same no more. I remember, and my Sally's out here, right? He's doing very well with his life. And this was my Sally at the time. We were Sally's for like 4 or 5 years. I remember seeing so much was happening there that, you had to be aware of everything, your surroundings, you know what I mean? I went to chow hall. We go to chow hall one day, and as soon as we get into chow hall, my body starts giving me these responses, right? And I tell him, I go, hey, homie, something's going to crack right now. Like, get ready. So he's like, all right. And my body, like, I'm going into like anxiety, dog. I didn't even know what it was, like a panic attack. But you can't have a panic attack in prison, right? Like, that's just, you're not supposed to do that. But I'm going through all this in my body, homie. And I tell him, get like something, be on point right now. I don't know what, but something's gonna jump off. We go in, boom, get our trays, sit down. The whole time I'm there, I can't even eat. Finish, dump our trays, walking back, boom, get back to the cell door closes, the yard doesn't go down, nothing happens. So I'm like, damn, what is going on with me? Like, I'm off, like I'm thrown off. And this started to happen just on occasion. It would just hit me like, oh shit, something's gonna happen right now. The yard's gonna go down right now. You know what I mean? These responses that my body was having. Didn't say nothing to nobody. Who are you gonna say? You know what? I'm having panic or an anxiety, right?
So it was like a panic attack.
It was like a panic attack, anxiety, whatever it was. I would always and this is another messed up part of it, is I liked being in my cell. When that door would close, it would be a relief, homie. Like,
because you would feel like, all right, safe. Because you didn't have to be.
Because I only had one fool to worry about. You know what I mean? Like, you know, that cell door closes, I know it's just me and him. And I can handle him. You know what I mean? And that was my pattern of life. And didn't even know it. So the supermarket stuff was related to whatever happened at 19 years old, when my body changed, when my mind changed, when the response I had to things I was seeing happen in there. You get me? Was like, okay, boom, this happened. This fool didn't see it coming. Damn, it was on, you know, right there at the pull-up bar. You get me?
Yeah.
It was like, now I had this trauma response that I didn't even know that I had, that I was experiencing. So the supermarket, didn't even know it, was, I don't want to be here. I would rather be in my cell. And it sounds,
it's safe.
It sucks to even say it like that, but that's what it was. Like, why do you have to get that meat? You know? Okay, so boom, I have all that. I'm carrying all that. My father-in-law at the time, was watching me work, you know, Mexican from Mexico. You know, my wife is second generation here. Mm-hmm. He doesn't speak much English. Hardworking man. That's all he knew, was to work hard. His story is interesting. He was a workaholic, you know what I mean? And a couple of his sons became gang members as well. Matter of fact, one of his sons was killed, and the next morning he got up, put his boots on, and went to work. And the body was still in the street, like a couple houses down the block. And what's crazy, my wife tells me a story that she went in crying to him, you know, telling him, like, why are you going to work? Why are you not out there? And his response to her was, if God were to say to me, cry right now, my son, and I'll bring your son back, I will cry. But he's not coming back. And he left to work. That's how they grew up. That's how they grew up. You feel me? He's watching me, you know, and I wanted to prove myself to him, like my work ethic. You know what I mean? I'm taking everything. Anything the agency threw at me, I'm taking it. You know, if I had to ride the bus, I'm taking it. I'm not turning down nothing but my collar. You feel me? I'm taking it all. And so I'm coming home dirty. And one day he walks over to me, and there was an ad in the paper, La Opinion or something. And he hands it to me, and it said Homeboy Industries on there. Right? Trip on this. And he says, call them, you know, in the best broken English, like he speaks straight Spanish, bro. And he says, maybe they can help you. So, you know, I take it, and I'm like, oh, what is this? Homeboy Industries. I had heard about it in the pen. You hear about Father G, you know.
Yeah, Father G's famous.
Yeah,
man.
Father G's famous, but you don't believe it if you don't know him.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't believe those stories. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The priest, really? Like, bought you shoes? Like, what priest?
And then he talks like he's Mexican.
Right? Talks like he's Mexican, kicks him with the homies. Yeah. He loves the homies, right? But, so I look at it, I'm like, what is this? Homeboy Industries. So I call, I get the number, I call, and there was a homie, Eddie. He answers the phone. He says, this is Eddie with Homeboy Industries. How can I help you? And I said, I'm looking for a job, homie. Are you guys hiring? And he says, well, let me ask you a few questions. I said, all right. He goes, you ever been locked up before? I'm like, what kind of question is, you know, you're trying to apply for a job. I said, yeah, I've been locked up before. Matter of fact, I just got out. He goes, all right, you ever been involved with gangs? And I'm like, I'm looking for a job, dog, you know what I mean? And I say, yeah, homie, I'm from a gang. And he says, are you currently on probation or parole? I'm like, dog, I'm on parole. I'm on high control parole, all right? He goes, one more question. He says, do you have any visible tattoos? Like on your face or your neck or hands or anything? And I used to have tattoos on my face, my arms all blasted. And I remember looking at myself and I go, yeah, homie, I'm all tatted up. And he says, all right, we'll give you a job. And I'm like, what? I said, hey, are you serious, man? He says, yeah, we'll give you a job. Can you come down here today? And I was like, I tripped out on that. And I said, yeah.
Man.
I said, I'll be down there. Hang up the phone. My wife takes me down there. And as soon as you walk up, I mean, you've been there, right?
Yeah.
Gang members everywhere, homie.
Man, I drove up and I'm like, oh shit. I was like, I haven't gotten in a fight in a long time.
Right?
That's what I told Sylvia. Like, I was like, fuck, I'm old now. Like,
Gang members everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, I had that same response. And I walk up. I remember right before I got in the door, I told my wife, I said, go start the car. Keep it running. You know what I mean? I go inside. I sit down. And, I ask, you know, I meet Eddie. He gives me a form to fill out. I sit down and I'm filling it out, and just gang members everywhere. You know, I'm looking at them, and you know, our experiences, they shape us, homie. They shape the way we see ourselves. They shape the way we see the world. I noticed this dude walk by me, all tatted up, blasted, eyelids, everything, ears.
That's what's called
Mario.
Most
tattoos I've ever seen in my life, right?
He looks scary,
Yeah,
but he's a really cool ass dude.
Really good
I don't want to spoil those. I don't want to spoil those.
Don't trip. He passes by me once, then he passes by me twice. You know, I notice him, and then I notice him notice me. And I said, okay, you know what I mean? Here it is. So I put the clipboard down. You know, I notice him notice me, put the clipboard down. And sure enough, he starts walking towards me. As soon as he gets to me, he extends his hand and he says, my name's Mario. I've never seen you here before. Would you like some water or something to drink or anything? And I remember shaking his hand, and it wasn't no one of those. Yeah. It was like he really shook my hand. And I remember tripping out, like, what? I was like, nah, I'm good. And then, of course, the mind of the trauma goes, oh, he was just reading your tattoos. He'll be back later with his homeboys or something. You know what I mean?
He was just scoping out the scene.
He was just scoping you out. But that was so far from the truth. So I got hired, right? And I started working there. And like I said, back then it was, I need you at arm distance. So it was, you know, I just need you at arm distance, everybody. I didn't want anybody close enough to hurt me. And I didn't even know that was the reason, right? I just thought this is how I get down. I mean, you know, boom, all this hugging and stuff, you know, because you see so much hugging and engagement. And I left. I was like, fuck, this place is not for me. You know what I mean?
You think it's a little bit overwhelming?
It was overwhelming.
Because when I walked in there, and this is last week, right?
Right. Yeah.
I'm still like trying to process things, and I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, oh man, like.
It's so much engagement.
I didn't realize what I was thinking, and it just brought me back to being like a kid. I told Sylvia, like, so I was like, oh, there's a gang of fools right here. Oh man. So I'm just scoping things out, just trying to, you know, and it gets you in the element that you don't even realize, right?
Right.
And I was just like, but then I seen the engagement, and I was like, wait a second, what?
Yeah.
Everybody's like hugging each other. You know, like,
helping each other.
What's up? And
what do you need?
Boom, hey, sir.
Yeah.
And then it brought and I was like, okay, cool.
Right.
So it's like, because we have this stereotype of what a cholo is.
Yeah.
Or what a homie is. And that they don't fit that stereotype.
Exactly.
So it's like, it was all love. And I was like, 10 minutes in, I was like, I'm cool.
Right.
Like,
and
everything's all good here.
it's so much needed, too, because you think about all the experiences we had as kids were so palpable, homie. They were so real. Like, on the other side of that, the change has to be real, too.
Yes.
Like, it has to be real. It can't be watered down. Like, it has to be that. Like, it has to be so palpable, you know it's authentic, you know it's true, you know it's real. And that's what I started to experience, and that's what I was afraid of. Because if I'm not this character that I created, then who am I? And that's where like the rubber meets the road, right? Where all this is, I'm being provided all this love and all this care, and I'm coming there and people want to help me. That homie that I met over the phone, I come in one day and dog, we grew up like you don't ask nobody for nothing. You know, you put yourself together. If you got one pair of pants, you iron them every day. You wash your drawers in the shower. You wash your socks. You know what I'm saying? You hang them up. You come to work. You iron your white tee. You know, you don't say to somebody, hey, homie, I'm poor. You know what I mean? Hey, homie, I only got one T-shirt and one pair of pants. You don't say that. It's just not common. I come in one day and that same homie has a bag full of socks and boxers on me. Why? Because he knew when he got out of the joint what the experience was. He just knew. You didn't have to ask him. He knew, to help us. Like, he was already, like, he was a navigator. He was, hey, homie, this is how you do this. This is how things are going to work right here. These are the groups, the classes. Like, he was a guiding light. Hurt people, right? But healed people help other people heal. Like, he was the guiding light. If you really think about it, like where he was from and stuff, the tattoos on his face, it was like, dog, it was uncommon, right? So anyway, I end up bringing my brother. I find my little brother. I bring my little brother. And I asked Father G, I said, hey, my little brother. So when my mother died, my brother must have been 14 years old when she died. And he's left to experience life on his own. Hurt, pain. His dad even died too. So he's growing up as best as he can. He's surviving. My brother back then, he didn't speak much. The only way he knew how to express himself was physically and violently. He didn't even talk to me, and I'm his brother. But I bring him, to Homeboy, and Father G says, sure, son. He starts today. He'll work part-time right here, and he'll go to our school. We have our own school. And, he'll graduate, son. And I'm like, damn, I never graduated. You know what I mean? Like, it was uncommon. A lot of these things were so foreign. But I'm like, all right, boom. So I bring him. And, we're struggling. It's early on. You have to unlearn everything, right? Yeah. And when I was growing up, I taught my brother, like, don't ever, cry in front of anybody. Don't ever show weakness. They'll take advantage of you. I taught him the whole wash your drawers in the shower, hang your socks, get up the next day, iron your pants. So back then I was like 60 pounds thinner back then, right? So I was thinner. We wore the same size. So if I had these pants on today, my brother would wear them tomorrow, and vice versa. We would trade clothes. People at Homeboy Industries, like, they see you. Like, they really, really see you, homie. They don't watch you. They see you. We came in one day, and the homie at the front, he says, hey, Father G wants to talk to you guys. So I'm like, damn. I look over at my little brother like, what did you do, fool? You know what I mean? We go up in there in G's office. And it's a trip because back then in the early days, like, I used to see G, and this goes back to, like, I thought I was unholy, unworthy. And I would see him, and I would, like, he'd be coming my direction, and I would turn around and just head to the opposite direction. Yeah. Because I was like, damn, he's so holy, right? He calls us in, and we're sitting at his desk, in front of his desk, and he has these 2 Sears cards in his hands. And he reaches across his desk, and he says, son. He calls me son, right? It's big too, and I'll get into that. But he says, son, take these cards and go buy your guys' house some clothes. And we're like, nah, we're good. Like, we're good, G. He says, son, take these cards. Go buy your guys' house some clothes. We take the cards reluctantly, and we leave. We're going down Alameda, and I look over at my little brother, and he's sobbing, homie. Like, uncontrollably. He's sobbing. And I'd say to him, I said, why are you crying, homie? And his response was, through his tears, why the fuck do they care about us so much, homie? He couldn't wrap his head around it. I didn't have the words for him in that moment, you know what I mean? But I have them now, and I would have said to him, it's because you're a good kid, because you deserve it, because you matter, homie. Because you should be loved like this. Now, just like all the other experiences that I had gone through, they had shaped me, they had scarred me, calloused, all these things. That experience, that also changed the course of my life. I knew that I wanted to be able to help create experiences like that for others. You know what I mean? I knew it. I just knew that I wanted to be able to support people like my little brother. Like myself, people that hadn't felt worthy, people that were going through the things I was going through. I didn't know what that meant, but I just knew in that moment, like, my heart was forever altered. And I was all in. you know, like all in. I started off cleaning restrooms, whatever they put me on. I was just all in, homie. Like that's the best way I could describe it. I was just, you know, he put me, I remember I started on maintenance, cleaning restrooms. We would do Chinatown cleanup. We would help clean the community. And then they put me on like supplies. And, you know, I made sure that everything was organized. Whatever I did, I was just all in.
Would you say that the first time in your life you felt loved and accepted?
Yeah, I would 100% say that. Like I felt loved, accepted, and seen, and I felt like there was compassion for me. And there was tenderness too. There was tenderness. Like it was okay that I wasn't there yet. You know, it was okay that I had all this baggage. But it was also, you know, whenever I was ready to unpack it, that was okay. You know, and there was just so many people in my life that supported that process. You know what I mean? That showed me the way, that I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't have understood all that pain and hurt, and that there was a way to heal it, that there was a way to change it, to transform it. You know, and then also this, like being connected to my life purpose now, going back to the beginning of all I ever wanted to do was like make people happy, you know, support people, make them feel happy, joyous, and free. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Be there for them, like as a kid. And I get to do that today, homie. Yeah. Like that's my life today. I get to support people, you know what I mean? I get to help them create experiences. You know, I get to be there for them. You know, I get to support processes. I got my internal processes, but we get to support like strategic processes so that people can thrive. You know what I mean? Like it's so interesting because never in a million years would I have thought like this is what I was going to be doing with my life. You know what I mean?
Given everything, you probably look back and be like, man.
Right? Like we had this saying there, and I've heard G say it, you know, or we've said, somebody, you know, people have said it is like Homeboys returns people to themselves. Like I realized the truth of my life. You know what I'm saying? And my truth is your truth, and your truth is my truth, and my truth is his truth, is that we're all exactly what God had in mind when God created us. Like we're all exactly, you know, what God had in mind. Like there was nothing I needed to do to earn it. You know what I mean? I can't be no more of a better person. You know, I'm loved. And I could prove that, homie. And I'll tell you why. Like I was in New York, you know, a year ago, last year. And I was doing this. I was like, not because I was seeing people, right? I was seeing people. There was these artists in New York, and my job was to be there and like, you know, kind of counsel them in a sense. So they would come to me about their art, and, you know, we would talk about their art and then like where they're going with their art. And they were from all over the world, you know, different parts of the world, different parts of the country. And I sat with this artist from China, right? And I had been sitting with, every day I had a schedule to meet with people, and we would talk through their art and how they were feeling about it and where their careers were going. I sat with this woman from China, and, you know, I'm asking her about her art, but she wasn't really too enthusiastic about the art. And you know what's interesting about life is what we go through, it's always about something else. Like we could be going through some shit at work, or, you know, but it's always about something else, homie, right? There's always something, we call it the thorn beneath, right? Yeah. The thorn underneath. And so she's like talking about her art, but I'm like, and then at a certain point I said, what's really up, homie? You know, I asked her straight up, like, what's really up? And she says, I'm going through a breakup right now. And I was like, all right.
There was something there.
Yeah.
You just got to get it out.
Yeah, now we're getting somewhere, right? You know, they say the truth shall set you free.
Yeah.
That shit is real, homie.
True.
For real, it's true. So I'm like, all right, now we're getting somewhere. I said, so, you know, what happened or whatever? And she's like, well, he left me. All right. He left you. Well, what does that mean? She's like, what do you mean? What does that mean? He left you. What does that mean? Well, he doesn't want me. Okay, he doesn't want you. What does that mean? He doesn't want you. I'm undesirable. Okay, you're undesirable. What does that mean? You're undesirable. Nobody will want me. Okay, nobody will want you. What does that mean? I'm gonna be alone. What does that mean? Oh, I'm unworthy. Then we start getting deeper, right? Unworthy of what? I don't know. Unworthy of what? What does it mean? I'm unworthy of love, she says, right? I said, man, now we're getting somewhere, right? I asked her, I said, is that true? Is it true? And no, I got like, she's perplexed. Like, what? Is it true? Like, what the fuck? Like, where are we going, right? Where are we going with this? Well, is it true? I asked her, is it true? I don't know. You do know. You do know if it's true or not. Is it true? She's like, well, how do I know? How I know that it's not true when we feel like that? How I know deep to my soul, to the core of who I am, how I know that it's not true, that we're not unworthy. How I know. Every day, every moment, every second of our existence, we receive this breath, right? We rarely think about it, right? Rarely do I think about it. And when I'm sleeping, I'm breathing. Right now, through this whole, how much time we've been here, we've been breathing, we've been experiencing this breath. Even in the Bible, it talks about he breathed it into Adam, right? Mm-hmm. We've been experiencing this breath. Science can prove it. They call it oxygen, right?
Yeah.
The trees produce it. They say the trees, okay? The trees are connected to the earth. The earth was the earth connected to our creator. However you want to break it down, something is providing this thing for us. Consistently, constantly. We don't do shit to earn it. You know what I'm saying? I get it, you get it, he gets it. That person that robs the old lady's purse gets it. Person you might like, not like, gets it. Unconditional, right? I make mistakes, I still get it. Is it true that we're unworthy? Absolutely not. Matter of fact, that love is so unconditional, homie, I can't even fathom it. You get me? Because as a human being, we pick and choose what we like, what we don't like. If it was for us, so how many people would be dropping dead not receiving the breath, right? Yeah. But this higher source and power that's greater than us provides this thing for us. And we don't have to do anything. We just get it. We receive it. It's so unconditional, homie, I can't even wrap my head around it. Damn. So in that moment, we cried. Because the truth shall set you free, and that's the truth. And the truth sometimes is so powerful, it does that for us. It reveals, it's so powerful, the revelation of like knowing that, like, all my life I've received it. All my life. It's unconditional, homie.
You're right about that.
So what happened to me was that the revelation, like the reality of who I am and who I was, and also understanding the circumstances that I navigated, that if you put anybody in a setting like that, what would they do, right? And then having to, one, unpack my own stuff, and then like liberating myself, but also liberating the resentments I had towards my mother. You know what I mean? The freedom that came with that. Like knowing, she wasn't a bad mother, a bad person. She went through some shit.
She had tough circumstances.
You know what I mean? And then, and it's still a problem. Like healing ends in the grave, homie. You know what I'm saying?
Do you look back sometimes and you feel like some of these emotions resurfacing, all the shit I've been through, and then you start feeling like, oh, fuck. And it's just kind of like they resurface?
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
Yeah, I think that while acknowledging them, and then once again, like facing them and being truthful with myself. And we had this conversation the other day, right? Like you go through something in a day and you feel all these things. I'll say, I feel all these things until I'm ready to face them and say, like, what is this really? Like, what really am I feeling, right? Because I could sit here and say, oh, I'm frustrated with him, her, them. But am I? Let's go a little bit deeper. You feel me? What am I feeling? Fear. 9 times out of 10, fear, insecurities, unworthiness. A lot of it stems from unworthiness. You know what I mean? Like the feeling of like not being enough. And then going back to the truth and asking myself, like, is that true? It's not true. You get what I'm saying? Because I received this breath. So unconditionally, something's providing this breath, but I got to unpack it a little bit. You know, I try my best to not stay at the surface level of things, but I'm human, of course. Like, I'll go through things. I get frustrated, but then I ask myself, like, what is it really? Like, what's really bothering me? You know, what am I really feeling? Anger is a secondary emotion. You know, so what's under that? Pain, fear, right? And then looking at it and just sometimes chuckling at it like, oh, you were scared right there, homie. That's all that was. It's okay. That's a natural feeling. You know what I mean? So, yeah, for me, it's like if something comes up, there's a homie named Stevie. He says, if it's a problem, it's a pattern. So if it comes up more than once or twice, then you got to look at it. You know, you got to take a look at it and be like, what is this? What am I really feeling? That's for me. Like, what are you really feeling, Jose? And facing it. And then doing whatever needs to be done after that, you know?
The facing, I think, is the hard part for people. Right?
Yeah, it is.
Because now you have to face the issue.
You have to face it, you know?
And, you know, I think, like, for myself, sometimes I self-sabotage shit that doesn't need to be. It's like, you know, I do a lot of self-talk, right?
Okay.
So I'm like, bro, what's the problem here? People probably think I'm crazy because I use it, like, I drive and I talk to myself, like, what's the, people are probably like, this guy's fucking crazy, talking to himself. Like, what's the real issue? Because everything's going fine, but you're the only one that seems to be upset.
Yeah.
And now you're fucking this up.
Yep.
Like, what's the real issue? Are you afraid? You have fear that this shit's really going to go the way you thought it would because it is? And like, all right, so now I'm just trying to sabotage my own stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and I learned how to process things like that.
And for me, too, one of the things, too, and it's a trip because I learned it, you know, while I was going through a lot of the things I was going through. But for me, a lot of it is presence is the problem. Like, I'm not present. When I feel like that, I'm not present. I'm either in the past or the future, which both don't exist. So why it's so uncomfortable is because I'm not supposed to, it's not natural to be there. It's not a natural thing for me to stay stuck in my past, nor is it a natural thing in my being to be in the future. That's why I'm so uncomfortable. So, you know, I was in the county in my last term when I was fighting life, and I went through depression, homie, like bad, right? And I ended up, and it's a trip, you know, I ended up with this older Pakistani man, all right, Muslim. Old, bald, tall, thin, built, like fit, but old, right? A big old gray beard. And so the trays I was in a 2-man cell. Trays would come in, and we're in the old county, and I wouldn't eat. I know it's hard to believe right now because I love it, right? But I wouldn't eat, right? They would come in, I'd be like, I don't want my tray. I'm balled up in the corner of my bunk. One day, this dude, he taps my bunk, right? And taps it pretty hard. And I get up, I said, what are you doing, homie? Don't touch my bunk. You know what I mean? He's like, he with thick Pakistani accent, I can't sit back and watch you do this to yourself. I'm like, what? I'm putting on my shoes. I said, watch me do what to myself? He's like, watch you do this to yourself. He's like, you know what your problem is? You know what your problem is? And I'm like, what's my problem, homie? He goes, do you have the key to this cell? Can you open the cell door? I said, come on, homie. You know I don't got the key. You don't got the key neither. He goes, do you know the outcome of your court case? Do you know exactly what's going to happen? I said, of course not. I don't know what's going to happen. I know it could potentially happen. He's like, but do you know what is exactly going to happen? I said, no, of course not. He said, you know what your problem is? He said, your body is in here and your mind is out there. He said, keep your mind and your body in the same place and you'll have perfect peace. I was like, damn. He's like, I'm not going to watch you do this to yourself. Keep your mind and your body in the same place and you'll have perfect peace. And it was one of those moments like, damn, he's right. You know what I mean? So anyway, I say that to say this is my problems mostly stem from my presence. like where I'm at. If I'm in the future, you know, I'm not here right now. I'm not present, which is uncomfortable because it's not even physically possible. You know, I could do it in my mind, but my body's still right here. You feel me? Same goes for the past. So the peace that I have is when I'm in this present moment right here, right now. And what's interesting is that's the only thing that really exists. Everything else is a story, homie. You know, and I've been able to realize that with my life. Everything's a story, like what was and what could be. But what is better than both. You feel me? Like what is right now is better than what was and what could be. Because it's real. You want what's real in life, right? Like with anything. You know, if you buy a bout and it's fucking $500, you want the real deal, right? Right? So you buy, you know, a plate of food, you want real, authentic, you want the real deal. The same goes for what we're seeing in our experience and our presence. That's why it feels so right. That's why it feels so good to be here, right now, because it's real. Everything else is not, you know, for me. So I find that all my problems stem from that. Is being somewhere else. Because it's uncomfortable, right? Like imagine me trying to jump through that door and be on the other side of that door when I'm sitting right here. It's uncomfortable. It's just not possible. But we, as human beings, we do that. Like we tend to do that.
That's deep right there, brother. Man. So let's talk about Homeboy Industries, right?
Okay.
You would say that really was the biggest stepping stone to be the person you are now? Because of the services they provided, the opportunities they gave you. And then you finally got to meet Father G, and it's like, oh, man, he's real.
Yeah, he's real. He's the real deal.
You think those opportunities and what Homeboy Industries gave you it just helped you?
Yeah, I think that, yeah, definitely, without a doubt. Without a doubt, I don't know where I'd be, you know, but without a doubt, definitely I could say Homeboys gave me a space to heal and a community to be connected to and the support I needed to get past all those things. Definitely, without a doubt. It provided that, you know. It provided new experiences with people because the healing happens in the relationships. Think about that. Like all the relationships I had growing up, the unhealthy ones, contributed to the way that I was, you know, living in this world. My behavior, everything, all the pain and hurt. So turning that around and having healthy relationships, you get what I'm saying? Like that shit, like I was able to really, to heal from all the unhealthy relationships that I had.
It's just going from like night and day, right?
Yeah.
From the previous relationships that you had, the upbringing, all the traumas, and then being in a space where it's like it's okay to be vulnerable, it's okay to be you.
Yeah.
At the beginning, you're probably like, oh, fuck, this is too much. But then it's like you started being receptive, and it's like, I am a pretty good guy.
Exactly. You know, because that part
I do have potential.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was reading this thing the other day. It said only true growth comes from vulnerability. Like you can only, like I was reading this thing somewhere and it was talking about like growth and how it comes, you have to be vulnerable to grow. Dog, think about the trees. Like the earth teaches us this, right? Like all the trees, all the leaves on the tree die, you know, in order to grow. You know, all these elements that we see all the time, but we don't really see, you know what I'm saying? But they're around us. It's you know, Homeboys allow me to like be able to see. I couldn't see before. Put it like that. I was blind. You know what I mean? Homeboys allow me to see again, to be able to see. Like see my own greatness, you know what I'm saying? See my true potential. I didn't even believe it. I believe these stories, the past. I believe the past. Imagine that. Like, yeah, you know what? I'm not worth anything else really, but, you know, prison system, juvenile, all these things. The way I was treated in different circumstances, But that wasn't true. It brought me back to my reality. Like, nah, like you are a good man. You know, that's done. It's over. You did the best you could back there. You know, we're here though now. Like, you deserve better. You deserve love. And then putting that into practice though too, homie. Like, cause words are words, you know what I'm saying? Like words
and action is two different things.
Two different things, you know? It's like being able to put those things into practice. That's where the true gift was at for me. You know, and like I think I shared this with you. I don't know if I did, but I remember a homie early on told me like this. He said, "You only keep what you have by giving it away." I didn't understand what that meant, right? I was like, well, I don't have much to give. You know, like what, buy someone a sandwich? Like, I don't even know if I could do that. You know what I'm saying? And it wasn't that. It was these things that we learn along the way. The practices, the insights.
The trials, tribulations.
The challenges, the barriers that we overcome. We keep what we have by giving it away. You know, and so that was also like putting it into practice. What did it look like practically? What it looked like was G giving us those gift cards. What it looked like was him calling me son. Do you know what's interesting, homie, is that we're born into this world with one role, our first role, right? And this is what I believe. Like, I was born into this world a son first, right? But you think about the situation, you know, and I wasn't able to be that fully, right? So I wasn't able to inhabit my first role. How, if I couldn't inhabit my first role, how do you think I'm going to be a brother and a friend and a husband and a vice president and all these things if I first can't be a son? It's not going to happen. You feel me? Like, there's levels to this, right?
Absolutely.
I was able to go back and to be a son, my first role, and receive that fully inhabited son. You know, G-Dog, I love you, son. That was G. Dang. Son, I love you. Son, you're so great.
How does that make you feel?
It makes me feel whole. That's how it makes me feel. It makes me feel whole.
That's deep.
Yeah. So imagine, right? There's a story in, I think, his first book. And in his first book, right? It's crazy because one of the homies, I'm coming back from Dublin with G, and we were out there doing this. It was called the Four Corner Festival, and it was so out there in like Dublin. Like, you think gangbanging out here is bad? These fools, you know, they had 10 years of like straight gangbanging, right? Just
over
like
there?
we had out here, over there. You know, out here we had the decade of death, right?
Yeah.
From 88 to 98. Bad, really, really bad time, right? In LA, 88, 98. Out there, I forget their years, but they had 10 years of, they called it the Troubles. All right. Now, the Troubles were, these fools were literally, homie, like bombing each other, right? Like, I'm talking about regular, like priests, police officers. Everyone chose their side. They literally had to create barriers amongst the North and the South where at 6 p.m., the streets would close, like metal would lift up, and you would have to choose what side of the city you were going to be on because it was on, right?
Nah.
Yeah, seriously. And they called it the Troubles. And so we went out there to talk with them. And what's funny is, so it's myself, it's Hector Verdugo and Steve Avalos and Father G. And we've changed so much that like we don't even see ourselves as gang members, right? So Steve, we're walking through Belfast, and he's like, hey, what are we actually doing out here, right? And he's asking us, and we're telling, we're at the Four Corner Festival, and G's saying to us, he's like, yeah, we're out here. We're gonna talk about, they're gonna have some, some peace conferences, and we're gonna, they're gonna have some gang members speak. And Stevie goes, gang members? What gang? They're gonna have gang members speak out here? And G looks at him and goes, yes, homie, you're the gang member. You know what I mean? That's gonna speak out here. You know what I'm saying? So it's like we go out there, and and you always see, like I said, like it's about something else. It's never about what we think is the issue. It's always about something else. We got in the room and it was beautiful. But I say that to say we're coming back from Dublin, and the homie Richard calls me, And he was in Atlanta. I was supposed to actually go with him to Atlanta to do this conference, but I went with G. And he had just finished reading the chapter. And in the chapter, in the book, I'll paraphrase real quick. There's a homie that paroles, and he's a big dude. He's all tatted up. And I always picture myself in this story, big dude, all tatted up. And he paroles, and G takes him to JCPenney or Sears or something to buy clothes, right? And they're in line, and, you know, people are staring at him like, who's this, you know, white priest with this gang member? The homie's all big, so he's like scaring people in line and stuff. They leave. G drops him off at home. And later on that night, G says that he gets a phone call in the middle of the night. And it's that homie. And, you know, G's like, you know, what's up? You know, is everything all right? And he says, yeah, everything's all right. He said, I just wanted to ask you something. He says, all my life, you've been like a father to me, right? And G says, yeah. He says, all right, so you're like a father to me then. He says, so if you're a father to me, that means I'm a son to you. And G says, yeah, son. And the homie says, all right, so you'll be my father and I'll be your son. And they hung up the phone. And G says that in that moment he realized something, that the homie didn't realize that he had a father. In that moment, the homie realized that he was a son. You feel me? His first role. And the homie I'm on the airport and he's telling me this and he's like, damn, so we're like brothers then, you know what I mean? Because G's like our dad, right? And we cried and I was like, damn. But it made me think about all that. It made me go back like, okay, my first role was to be a son. You know, and if I could do that well, then I could be everything else. You know what I mean? I could be a brother, a friend, a cousin, uncle, you know, vice president, all that. You feel me?
How does it feel to be the vice president of a place where you walked in after being hurt for so many years, being down for so many years, and you walk into a place that gave you hope and gave you the desire to be better, and now you're the vice president? How does that feel?
It feels surreal. It feels like a dream. Yeah, it feels like a dream. Sometimes I'll be in like meetings and I'll look at myself like, damn, you know, you're really here. Dang. I feel blessed, homie.
You are blessed.
Truly, truly blessed, bro.
And you get to bless other people.
Right?
Every day.
Yeah, every day.
You know how good it felt to walk in there?
Yeah, I do, actually, yeah. I do, homie.
He does. He gets to see it
every day, yeah.
But from an outsider, you know, going in there and seeing the love, it's like, oh, shit. And then because of the stereotype, right, that you think, oh, well, blasted, cholos, right? They're not supposed to behave this way. Show love, encourage each other, be there for each other. And I got to experience it the time that I was there. I was just like, damn, this is an experience, but it's like, damn, this is what it's supposed to be like, right?
Yeah, I think so.
And I seen everybody come up to you, even, you know, from the Homegirl Cafe. Mm-hmm. You know, she was all happy, all full of energy. Yeah, she was all tatted in the face, but it's like, I seen like a child in her. Yeah. Like she's just happy and just there, and she was giving you high fives and shit. Yeah, and I was just like,
that's Erica. Yeah. She's doing so good. Yeah.
You know, you're going to get to see it right now. But I was just
I think it's like, you know, I mean, even if you go into the book, like when, you know, Jesus was walking the earth, right? You know, you read the whole New Testament and things are so clear in there. Like who he got down with, you know what I mean? Who, like, you know, where he was at. Mm-hmm. How he moved, and you know, the people that he cared for, and I mean, he cared for everybody, but the things he was like interested in, right? But there was this story, you know, where he was getting frustrated with the apostles, and then there was like a little kid. They had brought the little kid, and then back then, I guess there was all these rules about being a kid, and then he said to them, he was upset. He's like, nah. He said to them, he said, until you can become like this little child, you will not understand the kingdom of heaven. You feel me? And that was always interesting to me, because it's like, what do children do when they're untainted? Like, when the world has not harmed them, it's like they look at the world so big, and so happy and so curious. You know what I'm saying? And free. And all they want to do is play. You know what I'm saying? And connect, and
no worries in the world.
No worries. And then, we grow up and we have all these ideas and all these thoughts. But that always stood out to me, because he said, until you can become like this little child, you will not understand the kingdom of heaven. You know what I mean? So it's like going back to that, like me going back to that child, like, I'm a son first, before anything,
Man, that's deep. That's deep, bro. This was to me, it was a great podcast episode. It was so intense, and it just brought back so much of my upbringing, and just to see somebody that has been through something similar, but you've been through way more stuff, but and look at in the position that you're in now, and you're helping people, and you're making the world a better place, man. You really are.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
You know what I mean? Just to see what I had seen last week, and Sylvia said all these wonderful things about you, but I knew the moment that I sat down with you, I have that intuition, I guess I would say. I knew you were a solid dude, man.
I appreciate it.
And I wanted to have you on, man.
Thank you.
And share all these wonderful things.
Appreciate
it's just, keep on doing your thing, keep on helping people, and keep on changing.
You too, bro.
Changing people's lives, bro. That's what you're doing.
Thank you, bro.
You walked into Homeboys yourself scared, not, scared, because this is a whole different, you were out of your element, they forced you to be vulnerable, and now you dealt with we still continue to grow, and we still continue to deal with what we went through as kids, but you dealt with it to the best of your ability, and it just worked out perfectly, man. It's like, man, you were in prison, you did, you were incarcerated and all this, and it just shows people that no matter what you've been through, you could always change.
Yeah.
You could always make those adjustments to be better, because at the end of the day, I think we're all great people.
Yep.
We all have great, and like, to me, I was a great kid. Oh, fuck, okay. But, yeah, so you keep on changing lives, brother.
Thank you.
You know what I'm saying?
Likewise, bro. Thank you for having me.
I don't want to start getting into the kid stuff, because it'll start, I'm still hurt, though. I feel in my heart, and I'm still dealing with things the best that I could, and just one day at a time.
Yeah.
So
that's what we got.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me on.
Man, any questions?
I'm over here texting my girl like, this was bringing up all my past traumas.
Shit.
But this is good. This is healthy.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to do this back then.
Yeah, same. Bro.
So for me, at this stage of my life, I'm vulnerable a lot, but it has a lot to do with my girl too, because she's like, dude, it's okay. And man, what?
Yeah.
Nothing fucking bothers me, homie.
Yeah.
Like, dog. Yes, it does, homie.
Yeah. If you want to be a part of Homeboys, if you want to get involved, go to www. Homeboy Industries, or just go to homeboyindustries.org. You can get on our website. You can see our products, our social enterprises, the work that we do. But if you want to stop by in person, 130 West Bruno, LA, California, 90012. Hope has an address.
Hey,
come
there
on
you
by.
Go.
We have Homegrown Cafe. We're open Monday through Friday from 8 to 2, Homegrown Cafe. And from 8 to 5, our program services are available. So come on by.
And tell them about the coffee shop, too.
Yeah, we also, after coming through Homeboy Industries, myself and Richard Cabral, the homie that I was saying that called me while I was in Dublin, who's, he had made a successful career in Hollywood industry. We now have a coffee shop, Tepito Coffee.
Baño.
Yep, in Pasadena. Fuck, I'm gonna forget the address. Better not forget the address. Hold on, let me make sure I give you guys the right address. I've memorized Homeboys, and I was thinking, 695 East Colorado Boulevard, Pasadena, California. Tepito coffee. I would let the coffee speak for itself. It's deeply rooted in Mexico, so we get the beans directly from Veracruz. They come straight from Veracruz to the shop in Pasadena, to your cup, and it's just an amazing experience all around. Specialty coffee.
That's what's up, and we're gonna check it out.
I'm
hopefully we get to record it and probably add some towards the end of this video, or we'll do a video just by itself.
Yep. All right.
Hell yeah, I can't wait to try it.
Yeah, we're having an event on Sunday. It's gonna be from 8 to 10. It's something like similar to this, just homies coming together that are doing great things in the community, in the industry, and figuring out ways how we can support each other and network.
That's what's up. I think we should go.
Yeah.
8 to 10 in the morning?
8 to 10 this Sunday.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Let's do it.
All right, let's do it.
Let's do it.
This was good.
Boom, this was
Thank you.
good. Thank you so much for stopping by. We really appreciate you, bro.
Thank you
and
for having me.
continue doing great things, man.
Thank you, bro.
And right now, I'm going to Homegirl Grill. I'm the Homegirl Cafe. That's where I'm going.
Yep.
Hopefully, they're still open, right?
Yeah, it's on. They're still open till 3.
Oh, we're good. Let's go.
Right?
I'm hungry.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.